My own foreseeing of what's happening with the world happened to me 3 years ago when I got this higher consciousness and could see what was going on. And then coming into my mission now, realizing that I did this soul walking experience, which is very drastic because it's not a slow, pretty, and I awakened and then I started to do yoga and it was really abrupt. It was like one day I was one person and one day I was another. And that's the process of rebirth. Things happen suddenly, things happen through crisis. So the experience was so abrupt for me, it has taken me 3 years being an incubator to get through it. And that's commonly how it happens because you're really spending time learning about energetics of what it means to be a human on a really high level.
Welcome to the Global Affair podcast, brought to you by Love Out Loud, the world's largest love-based movement actualizing a civilization of love by 2030. My name's Nicole Gibson, and join me and some of the world's brightest minds as we bring some of the most important and controversial conversations of our time into a space of unity. It's important to know that as your host, this isn't about my personal opinion or bias, but rather an opportunity to listen with love, honesty, curiosity, and reveal the true universal experience us humans have amongst the differences. So if you love the show, please let us know by giving us a rating and tell us how to make this conversation easier for other people to jump into as well. And with that, let's get it. Ella Golding, welcome to the Global Affair.
Hello, thank you for having me, Nicole.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So we met through a dear friend of mine and a friend of yours, and someone that I trust in the perspective of. And so I was very intrigued to know of the work you were doing and very excited to open up this conversation around total system reform and redesign with our audience. And what fascinates me about your story, Ella, is you spent, almost 2 years not talking about what you were creating at all, but just in this incubator of extracting, rebuilding into what it is now that you're ready to start to talk about. And I feel very blessed, actually, that you chose the Global Affair to come forward and start to share it with the world.
Thank you. Yes, it's an incubator. It's like a silent seer. That's what I like to think of it. I just had to be able to take a lot of power to be quiet and watch, and it's been very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, your story, I don't even really know where to begin. So I'd love maybe for you to share what life was like prior to this massive shift and awakening you went through, but the awakening moment and moments that preceded it really were about, and how that led you to be creating what you're creating.
Yeah, so I think I love reflecting on my journey in what I'm doing because the process of evolution is within all of us. So whenever you have a spiritual awakening, you're literally witnessing the evolution of humanity in yourselves. And that's what we're here to do. We are a reflection of biologically, physically, emotionally of what the planet is going through. So when I look back at my life prior to this awakening, it was been such an interesting journey because it's looking at actually how did my life and how does everyone's life lead up to these grand eye-opening experiences where you look at the person that you were and see this as quite a beautiful, intricate tapestry of a life that was built literally to be unconscious. So my prior contract to this for what I was doing through my soul was literally to experience the dead end of unconscious. I was very much intelligent, emotional, and always seeking something, which has obviously led to me where I am. So it was 2020 when I had basically like an out-of-body experience where my whole consciousness of what I was living in lifted up out of my body. And then this whole new person came in. And through that learning, I realized that I had always been this woman, and it's come through in slow braids through my life. And it's this really interesting process called a soul walking. And I learned about this only last year. So I'd been experiencing all these crazy upheavals in my life of family, relationships, just life structures. My own foreseeing of what's happening with the world happened to me 3 years ago when I got this higher consciousness and could see what was going on. And then coming into my mission now, realizing that I did this soul walking experience, which is very drastic because it's not a slow, pretty, and I awakened and then I started to do yoga and it was really abrupt. It was like one day I was one person and one day I was another. And that's the process of rebirth. Things happen suddenly, things happen through crisis. So the experience was so abrupt for me. It has taken me 3 years being an incubator to get through it. And that's commonly how it happens, because you're really spending time learning about energetics of what it means to be human on a really high level. Yes, I know. Funny term, there's many different, I've read a few books on it now, but I realized it happened before I knew what this terminology was. And I started Googling it. Like, my guidance had told me, this is what's happened to you. And as soon as I read it, it was like a burst into tears kind of moment. Wow, okay, this is absolutely what I'm experiencing. So the more I've worked with that, it has really helped me to understand what other people need as well to rebirth themselves in their own lives. And that is really the process that we're here to master, is being a creator. And the death and rebirth cycle is our nature. It's our power.
I'm sure many people listening, and perhaps people that you've tried to talk about this experience with, might be hearing this and thinking, what is this all about? And I'm curious, prior to this experience where you had a massive paradigm shift in your consciousness, what was Ella like prior to that? If you were to go back in time, say 5 years, and say, hey, we're going to have this experience of a soul walk-in, what would that version of Ella say to that?
It's taken a lot of processing. It has been going back a lot to that woman, and through photos or through just any type of therapies, because you're releasing a lot of this pain that becomes conscious. So 5 years ago, about to travel overseas, I was leaving a life that I knew wasn't mine. I was very angry, very frustrated, very in lower dimensional frequencies, but I always had this incredible drive towards this person that I knew I was. Since I was even very young, my father had asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'd said, world evolution. And I think I was 14. I actually had no idea what that meant. So I knew that I had been slowly guiding myself through this process. So 5 years ago, said that to me, I would have gone, I know I'm powerful, sounds like something I'd probably do. But I'd been through some similar processes to this early in my life, through some disease and disorder and another near-death experience when I was younger. So I knew that I could conquer that sort of thing. But if you had told me the word consciousness, honestly, I would have been like, oh yeah, I get what you mean, but I didn't know. And this is when you get that intelligence immediately. It's so shocking, because you suddenly see everything in your life, from like the chemical in something to what that relationship was showing you, or multidimensional lives. So if you told me that 5 years ago, I would have been like, wow, I've really got a lot to learn, because it's, yeah, you can't, taking on that amount of intelligence at once is pretty abrupt. You know, I was just like anyone else, truly happy, looking at the world as it is, trying to find my dream, my purpose, wanting relationship, going about things. But I'm very different. I've never clocked into the normal financial systems or the normal way of being. I've always been very outsider. So it makes sense how this has come through, for sure. I'd been prepared for it for quite a long time, I think.
The experience that you're describing is a very rare experience. To have an experience in a lifetime where you become literally a different person overnight. And one of the things I think about often when it comes to change and transformation is, does it take an experience like this to really transform your life to the degree in which I'm sure many people listening to this crave? Does it take an experience like this? And what have your reflections been thereafter?
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting, because originally when this all began, I had a big team of guides helping me constantly. So I started as a channel just as my awakening was happening, writing. I've written all of these books, which we'll talk about later in the podcast, what this is all led up to, which is spectacular. But all the writing that I was doing, the channeling, was basically the codes that I had needed to reconstruct my life from this walk-in experience. So I got the intelligence that I needed to guide me through this process, but also to guide other people through what you are meant to do as soon as you get born, how you're meant to become a conscious being. And through these steps, it has allowed me to know that if it happens again, I'm fine. I know exactly what to do. It's actually one of the most freeing experiences, because the process has been, even only the last 9 months, I have only come into this full new life. It took a lot of discarding and releasing, and now sitting here really fully have taken on the consciousness that I received. It is really, that's what it is. It's showing people that there's no need to be afraid of change and you shouldn't be stuck in a place of near death. A lot of people do. They have a crisis in their life. They have these heart-wrenching experiences and they stay in this little pocket of fear and you can't get out. And people need to know that you can get out. It's actually not that hard. It's really quite fun. It's about knowing yourself and knowing the world you're in. It's the most spectacular experience you're going to have in your life. So I want people to have the skills to do that. And this is what we are here to learn as humans is you are the creator. You create your life, whether that's your death, your extinction, your evolution, you have a choice. And the realization of now having had guides guiding me on that and now really coming into fully being this being that has this intelligence now. And that's why it's taken me a few years to download it all and now be ready to share what these visions I have of the new earth and the world as it's going.
So before we jump into that, last question on this peak experience, what was the most fundamental shift in how you understood reality as a result?
Energy, definitely. The consciousness, understanding that we are energy and everything is energy and you create yourself from another dimension. So I can go in very deep into these things, but if you think of the world as a third dimensional, a game that you code, you are in charge of how that happens down to the level of your DNA. And the more people are discovering through science and through the way that the earth is a set being and the way that the earth does this, the fundamental was that it was an energy experience. And I think this is where people do struggle. This is where people struggle to understand consciousness. It's because you can sit down and you can study, you can have the intelligence, but can you feel it? It's the energy. And once you feel that energy of your higher self, who is evolving with you at the same time, because the whole universe is evolving with you, when you are working with that energy of this experience of what it means to be alive, and you realize it's an energy, it takes to a whole new level. So I think, that would be number one, I think. And that's where people need to move into, first of all, getting the learning and then activates that energetic experience.
Now, one of the things when I reflect on this subject of multidimensionality is the realities of quantum entanglement, how we can literally be in multiple dimensions at once. And when we get a good idea, that's actually us connecting to the frequency, the energy of an idea in another dimension. And in a moment that we call an epiphany, able to pull that down, and with discipline, we're able to bring that forward into the third dimensional reality, which then in turn elevates the consciousness for all. And I find that concept so remarkable. That's actually science. That's not New Age spirituality. That's been validated through science. And so my lead in here is, do you feel that what you're creating now was this kind of experience where you were able to tap into multidimensional system, multidimensional ideas, and through your integration process, bring that down into the 3D?
Yeah, absolutely. So just coming off what you said is that people think that consciousness, and I love these terms, you've heard it, woo, or floaty, lofty, it's this thing that I can't connect with, I don't understand. Consciousness is what's helping you say the sentence that you're saying to me now. Consciousness is in you, and it's actually a utility. It's a tool. It's a very basic, very logical expression of who we are. We're saying this having discovered what we've discovered. We don't know what we're going to discover in the future, but we've found based in science that this is what makes sense. And moving from the structures that we knew before we had all the technology that we do now, Newtonian physics, and moving into quantum physics and that now, that's just going to keep getting more and more and more. The spectrum of light that we see is only this much, a small amount. And so when you're talking about bringing things down from another dimension, the body and the matter that you see, the paper that I'm writing this stuff on, it's coming through me from another dimension. So if you've lived other lifetimes that have similar timelines of intelligence that you're bringing in, for example, you've had an experience in another lifetime where you're bringing the skills from there into the life you have now. This is why people change and sometimes suddenly become very good at something or suddenly have an idea to do something. It's because it's coming from the level of your mind, which is attached to a higher energy. The brain and the body is only built through consciousness building a template that then forms a human body. So anything that is seen has only come from the unseen. It has come from the fifth dimension. So people who think that oh, I'm not conscious, I don't understand. If you've had a baby or you've had a family or you've even opened your eyes in the morning, you're conscious. You just have to become conscious of being conscious, and it's within us. That's how the structures of the future need to be built. It has to be built on that innate intelligence in our ancestors, who we are actually living in the now as, our connection with Earth and one-on-one. We're moving through a sector now where we have technology that's mirroring our soul intelligence. So right now we're looking at how do we create a reality and a structure for humanity that is as close as possible to soul intelligence using technology, because eventually we're going to outgrow the technology and we will come back to that Earth-centric template. And we're just being tested at the moment, and we're allowed to have a bit of fun with it. A lot of it is painful, and there are people around the world really struggling. So that's why when you're in a position where you have this privilege of being able to connect multidimensionally, even though it's not a privilege, but if you have the space to even dwell on it and create from it, that's what you need to be doing right now. You're here to help the rest of the world just through your energy and your frequency.
And I love that. One of the things that I've given a lot of thought to when people ask me about structures like new business structures like DAO and other attempts to decentralize power, to build more conscious systems, my response is always, what is the consciousness of the individuals participating in that system? Because if the consciousness of the individuals participating in that system is still being driven by fear, lack, loss, greed, jealousy, then we're going to end up basically in the same predicament, that it's not really about our system as much as it's the consciousness that and the vibration that created the system and creates the system and upholds the system. And one of the things I love about what you're creating, Ella, is you put the sovereignty of the individual at the center. And so I think this would be an amazing time to sort of give an overview of what you've developed conceptually and what you're now in the process of building for humanity.
Yes, I completely agree with you, because it's like we're not building band-aids here or masks on what is the progression. We're actually here to do the real right thing. So thank you for asking. So when I had this out-of-body download of intelligence, it was a year of channeling and building my own practical life around my consciousness. So this is something that everyone does: rituals, meditation, and building your own base and your foundation of who you are as a being, which is constantly changing. But when you're going from being unconscious to conscious, your day radically changed. The next year after that, and this was in 2021, I was having a conversation with a friend who had just started in technology or blockchain and non-fungible tokens. And during that conversation the next day, this is where this whole structure that I'm about to describe began. I had this download of the channeling and the codes that I had used to build my reality from this spiritual awakening, which was all this information I was downloading, was actually a system and a formula, an algorithm of evolution and creation and how energetics work within consciousness. So within an hour, I'd written down all these letters, all these codes that I'd really been building the year prior, not knowing. And in that moment, I realized something massive, obviously massive, having a burst into tears. It was like every single particle of me that had ever been waiting to come out had come out. It was the most miraculous release I've ever had. And I then spent many months after that writing, getting it down into something that I could understand, talk to people about. And during this time, I'm working with my team and my guides so much that I'm learning and I'm researching. But yes, of course, not many people are hearing this story. Anyone who does completely gets it. But at that point, this is 2021 during COVID. So then the year after that, I actually moved to London. So I'm still holding this code with me. What am I doing? I'm moving to London during COVID. I put that to the side and I just continued my spiritual journey. And that year I came back to Singapore, and one day I'm lying having a meditation session and I got another download. And this was the structure that I built was actually a system to allow humans to create their own evolution within them. That then connected to a larger system, which was a structure that mirrored basically quantum physics and universal law, allowing not just the individual, but the collective to form a coherent, dual evolving system that will take us through technology to where we're next going, which is innate internal technology. So it was not just the systems need to become higher dimensional, it's that they won't become higher dimensional if we don't first start with the individual, of course. So then my whole life really, I moved overseas and it just came down to me sitting down every day. So this time last year, literally, it's this new, which is amazing. I'm sitting in Switzerland downloading all this information about the new financial system. And this is like in 3 stages of financial system time. So this is stuff that people may not even thought about yet properly or how to even achieve it. So the structure and the system that came to me is now really compact in a very precise product and the system that's about to be launched. That's called One Evolution under a group name One, which is yet to be properly established. But basically what it will be, it's a platform for consciousness and the upgrade of consciousness globally, a structural system that will take us from the 3rd dimension to the 5th dimension. And then it is a portal that allows the whole of humanity to work towards that goal together, and also for each individual to have and to produce their own consciousness, and that it is a product and a program that people can physically use, like I have, to produce consciousness. The amazing thing about it is that there's so many people doing these little stages of everything that needs to be done. So I'm sitting back watching, having this template, looking at humanity and going, amazing job. What is happening is fantastic. Everyone is on track with where things need to be going. Definitely. There's massive movements happening and it's really unfolding in a very orchestrated way. And I can see that happening and I'm seeing where this system is coming into play, and AI launching really heavily in the last year. That was the catalyst for, right, okay, now's go time. You need to bring that. This is where coding's coming in. This is where this formula for consciousness must come into play. Yeah, so I think what the problem's been is that everyone needs to understand that consciousness is the foundation of all religion, all the systems, every cell, every particle that you see, but we haven't been ever presented with a universal way of achieving. So coming through the system is a clarity on how to follow every resource that you can be given, from whether you're going into yogic study or any ritual or any routine that you are pursuing to elevate your consciousness. It all comes back to universal law. So the system is a base of universal law to catalyze within all of us and within the structures that we're using to form a new matrix. And I love the word matrix more than anything because it's people understanding that matrix is what we create within ourselves and what we create in the world. And we're here to create a new matrix, a conscious matrix. It's not getting rid of the matrix. We're not getting out of it, because if we get out of it, we don't exist. We are simply here to create one that revolutionizes our consciousness.
How does the system work as a user? So I'm coming into the system. What am I directed towards?
Yes, basically it's a very plain outlay of universal law and a system from unconscious to consciousness that allows you to see where you're at in your journey, whether you're unconscious or conscious, in a state of, okay, I'm starting the consciousness journey. I'm going to go and do yoga. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to read a book by Chopra. I'm going to do this. People go about their consciousness journey taking in all this new information, all these new skills, but there's never been anything that tells us exactly where we're at or where we're going with that and how to use all of these incredible resources and incredible communities to guide towards evolution. So coming into it as a product, you will basically be given the instruction manual on how to become conscious, the formula that you need to take in all this information over the span of your lifetime to become conscious, and then how to apply that to your life, and then how to create new structures in your life that support this for other people, but also inside yourself. And it sounds very generalized, and there's people doing this, but it's more an overarching blueprint that means that everyone will be on the same page no matter what you're doing, which is basically quantum law and universal law. It's just bringing that into the forefront of how we're creating our lives.
I like to call it like a directory. That's how I imagine what you're creating. And so is this in all systems, all areas of life, from education to health to economics to whatever?
Yeah. It's taking also, the big thing that people have is that they're trying to find their consciousness or their soul. So if you want to put all your frequency and all of who you are as a being into a word, that's your consciousness. We've given that the name of a soul. You can call it whatever you want, but that's you. So people find it very hard to understand how to find that. And I understand that it's because we've been told through many different systems, but it's always been worshipping something else. As you said before, it's about being a sovereign being with a soul, and nothing exists without you being connected to that. So every system must be connected to that. So the foundation of where we're at is that all of our systems are externalized. You're here, your consciousness is here, and you have to go outside of yourself to seek something to survive. Whereas it's not a soul-centric, like a biofield. It needs to be something that emanates from our very being. And we can build structures using the technology that we have within us. So we know that we have quantum entanglement, as you said. That's literally the way that you trade currency. That's the way that you produce and co-create new structures. The universe has given us the solution, and we just need to follow it on a more precise level. So yes, education, healthcare, bringing people back to their power. And when I say power, the resource of love within them, that's what power is. Power is your life force and your energy, and people have been thinking that this is outside of them. So healthcare, education, all these things, this is something that comes from within you. And bringing everything back to that level, people are going to feel that they can conquer what comes forward to them. Any crisis that they have, they know that they can self-heal. They know that intelligence and education is within them, what their purpose is in life. So people coming back to their center, if everyone did that straight away, the new systems would be built in a second. But we have to have two sides mirroring each other so that it has an activation, whether you're unaware or whether you're aware. If you think of it like a video game, which level are you coming in? Are you an expert, or are you down in just learning and beginning? We're all helping each other. The game can't work without everyone doing it together at once. So we need to play, we need to invent, and that's what we're doing to form this new life that's not suffering anymore. But we're going to go through a period of all of these things happening, and we need to be strong going through that.
The old has to fall away for the new to be reborn. And I just want to highlight your indication to the importance of power, personal power. And one of the things I reflect on when I think about, let's call it the old world, is that power was really centralized around control. And real power, true power, is power that's anchored in love. And as you've been building this system, what has been your, say, reflections on how our current matrix has actually been developed, the nature of it, how power has worked within it, and how that will shift as we move into another dimensional way of existing?
Yeah, when we're talking about love and power, I think obviously with what you're doing as well, Nicole, with In Truth and moving emotional power back to your source and back to something that comes from a soul, like you're literally building it back into the energy center, rather than people thinking that it's this externalized adoption of million things. It comes from that energy. And I love that about what you're doing. Obviously, it is what I'm doing cannot happen without everyone doing everything at once, but particularly someone like you focusing on sovereign emotions. It's very important. So I just wanted to bring that in, because that for me, whenever I talk about power and then coming back down to love and consciousness, that's why we connected. Yeah. So I think that power side of things, power on a lower dimensional scale, that is control, restriction, fear, and manipulation. This builds in the frequencies. So if you're looking at it, one matrix being third dimensional, if that's built from a model of poverty, suffering, persecution, slavery, those four things, then it's built to put people into a place where their power is not even able to be sustained within them, because in order to connect to that system, you have to give someone else your power. That's how it works. It's marketing, it's commerce, it's, you have to go to the grocery store and buy a vegetable that has chemicals on it at this point to be part of the supply chain. All of these things you have to be very brave to have clocked out of that yet. And I'm not saying that people, if you've completely done that we're at that stage where it's not possible yet. So we have to be, when you're awakened to what's going on, you have to then come back to your internal power and compassion and love and say, okay, I see what's happening. I see what we've done. I see how I've been unconscious, and I see how everyone else has. But we are here to evolve, and you must evolve through crisis in order to eventuate to the next stage. So it's amazing, because we are going through seeing how we have survived through these matrices of power that have caused suffering and all of these things. But it's almost like we got a bit ahead of ourselves as well. We got really excited that we could do things quicker, we could create things, have cars, and we can do all these things because we are creative. That's what we do. We want to evolve. We constantly seek expansion from a position of within ourselves. But what's happened is people think expansion comes from outside of them. And that's not where it is. It's the future is sitting in a place of wisdom and understanding what needs to be done and where true love and consciousness, which is happiness, comes from.
Could not agree more. And what does the world look like when these technologies are integrated and the old systems are starting to fall away and data is in the hands of individuals and there's a true, clear roadmap to be able to evolve our consciousness forward? The problems that we have today obviously going to be radically upgraded to new types of, hopefully more creative problems. How do you envision that? One of the things that I think about is really on an emotional level, we only experience sadness as a negative emotion because our contrast is happiness. But what happens when our baseline becomes, say, love? Is there going to be frequencies and states that actually give us a sense of relief from a frequency like joy? Because it really is exponential. I'd love to hear how you envision that and see that.
Oh, it's so interesting because when we look at ourselves as humans, and when you do have a connection very much to the universal civilizations and the way that other civilizations and races civilizations, different races, different genders, all different types of dimensional living, apparently, and I think it's quite funny, they look at us and we are the lower dimension evolving them. So for them, emotions are like a disease, and literally they are, because they do make us sick. If they have these crazy sways away from consciousness, which is the 0 point. Consciousnness is love. It is a stable harmony, like a warm buzz of clarity. Whereas we have these drastic, all these things happening, and the higher dimension, which is very much that 0 point of consciousness, we see ourselves as being something that needs to become peaceful and become all these things. But really, the higher dimensions, and we connect to your soul, we're already doing that. It's just up in another level. Yeah, emotions and coming to what the world will look like. I think we are here to experience different frequencies. So it's part of our experience to have fear and to have pain. We have a body that it feels pain. That's going to happen. It's more changing until we evolve to a place where we don't have these frequencies, which is likely to happen because we're an incredible race that will get to a point in some future dimension where perhaps our bodies don't feel pain. Perhaps we do operate at a level where we don't eat food. All of these things will change drastically what our needs are in life. But it comes back down to, as being creators, we need to co-create. So in order to do that, we have to have the frequency of needing to attach to something. Because if we don't do that, we don't form a new population. We don't procreate. So that lower frequency of needing to connect, needing to have a relationship, needing to give myself to a system or do this, that is actually what has gotten us to this point. So we can't criticize that. What we need to do is understand that's our nature and look at, okay, but how can we co-create with systems that don't cause harm to the environment? How can we co-create to something that doesn't cause disease? And as we truly look at the system of universal law, which is creation, co-creation, procreation, seeing how all these frequencies come through to form something that is stable, to form something that is conscious. So when you step out of your dreams and you wake up in the morning, it is not a trudge into something that is taking your life force from you. It is, I'm here with a purpose. I can go and be financially abundant. I can be in a relationship that is stable. That these things that have become so drastic emotionally will become just more of a stable consciousness within. And that comes from knowing that you are a creator and having the tools to do that. So that's why I think people are opening, there's millions of courses in the world now teaching people how to do this. But it's looking at taking that internal journey into the external world so that we can then not only sit at home meditating and feeling blissful, but then as soon as you step out of that, the world continues to be that way. And we need to form that merge because it can't be. Otherwise, everyone will be sitting in their house meditating and the world will be falling down around us.
Or in our VR headsets. Yeah. I've always lived by the principles, proceed as if success was inevitable. And I think for me, that mantra or that saying really encapsulates this principle. You know, if we guaranteed success, how would you move through life? What choices would you make? What would you pursue? And that's me, our whole team, actually. That's why we show up every day. We want people to understand that this isn't a matter of luck or chance. This is a matter of aligned action. And as you say, consciousness, so being able to hold the vibration of that which you're willing in a really stable, integrated, grounded way. And when you learn how to master this, your reality does and will reflect all that you desire and all that you seek.
Absolutely. It's really interesting going through this process with myself. Obviously, it's a position, and I am so grateful. It's a position of silent wisdom that I have had to get very peaceful with, building something behind the scenes without anyone knowing, without not needing recognition or validation, and watching silently until I was really ready to bring this out. And I'm still doing that at this point because I've been watching everyone and seeing them. It's going to happen one way or another. It's just, can we automate it? Can we make it easier? Can we allow people to understand what's going on and see this is what one evolution and what this system will be? It's the utility of consciousness. So it's not a woo-woo thing. It's in 10 years' time when you're using some sort of communication system, guess what it will be built on? If we've evolved, it will be built on the structure that has come through universal law on how we are to communicate. When you're in 10 years' time, we're not even using doctors or hospitals so much, where we have the power to connect on a different level. It's seeing that we need a plan for that. And I love watching everyone doing that. But I want to bring that into something that we understand as something we can control in a way, and we can produce, or at least we can manifest. So we're using the nature and the laws of the universe, manifestation, creation, to build a new world. It's the same process with an individual. When you have a spiritual awakening, the world needs a spiritual awakening. The earth is looking for it. She's screaming at it. Us saying, come on, guys, you don't need any more signs of disease here. It's what needs to be done. I think where people are struggling, I listened to something very interesting this morning from another group, which I have been admiring, called Human Garage, which is a self-healing movement in the world. And they were saying that the body feels really the top 3 pains that it has, like the most abrupt. Like you'll feel, I have a sore shoulder or something's failing. What we're feeling in the world at the moment is like these big things: the financial system, healthcare system, education system. Really, every system we have is not working. It is killing us because we have gone through creating that we needed to do in order to discover this new stage. And this is how the earth goes. But when you see a breakdown of the 3 biggest pains in the world, in your world happening, you haven't even seen the finite length of where that came from. That is just the eruption, the neural network down from that, from where it started, from an idea, from multidimensional energy. We will then have to work through all of that. So once the major things are crashing, we need a body system that is of Earth and of a new structure to support everyone. Because in 5 and 10 years' time, and even sooner than that, when people are wondering, oh my gosh, why didn't I know how to trade energy so that now we don't have finances? I don't understand how to pay for things or how to create. People don't have the skills. That's the first thing as well. This intelligence that people who have connected to themselves consciously may have more of. We need to use ourselves as we are to educate everyone else. So I think we need, and many leaders have been saying this, we need a system that connects all of us. That's not just consciousness. It's got to be. And it's not just social media. So the first stage of one evolution will be basically a universal portal to allow all these discussions that we're having to be channeled using intelligence to form a more coherent change. So it's like change should be a click away. If you have a percentage of people in the world that are conscious, we have telephones, we have technology, and we need to use the technology that we have to form this change. We're just at that really tricky moment where it's critical to use what we've got to make not further damage, but to empower us to move forward and move out of these locks we put ourselves in.
It brings me so much hope to know that entrepreneurs like you and like many people in our extended community exist, really does. And I'm curious if there's an entrepreneur that is listening to this episode, maybe they haven't thought about these concepts before, they're building systems and they're becoming maybe inspired or interested to look at how they can integrate a higher level of consciousness into what they're developing. What would some of your words of wisdom be?
Well, absolutely. So I think that understanding where consciousness comes from and where you are forming your structure. So what position of dimension? What are you coming into? Are you forming something that's serving the now, the third dimension, what we've got? Or are you building into your business or your family or anything, your daily routine, something that's going to take you to the next dimension? In order to do that, you need to know the way that things are created. So delivering people with, this is from being an entrepreneur. So if you're sitting creating, for example, a new identity company, there will be many, and it will continue to happen, everyone creating new dimensions of identity. When you look at the structure of oneness and who we are, there's only one system of identity. It is consciousness, it's frequency, it's the resonance of our heart, it's our DNA, it's our fingerprint. We have this technology already. Your system needs to reflect universal law and how that is going to evolve. So once we are able to all have the intelligence to know in each direction, what is my business, what is my vision, and where am I building into that, things are going to be a lot easier for everyone, because you're going to see 10 miles ahead. And instead of competing, having the best business, we will form a global, universal mind that is all working towards the same thing, making everything easier, making everyone wealthy. When you get to the position where we don't have money anymore and everyone can have anything they want every time, guess what? Everyone's still going to have the same amount of things, because they will realize the wealth comes from your soul and your internal quanta. So these illusions of, the world will go into this crazy state of things, it may for a little bit, but after that, people will soon realize that creation is the law that is ruling everything. So this is the education. And when you have conscious awakening, this is the natural intelligence you get. So before I learned all of these things, I already downloaded this information like a lot of people have. And then you start to learn how to use it. I want everyone to be able to have access to activating that, and then the tools to know how to move through it. Because it is a collective state of trauma that we're in at the moment. And that takes the big stage of healing. And they're talking about 2027 being our emergence from people realizing that things are based on the self, really. And then there's a whole nother journey from there. So we've got this next 3 or 4 years of people like you and I coming into, okay, how do we set up what we know for all the people who don't? Because as soon as the people who don't need a painkiller, which is what I'll call this, is if you go for a painkiller or a vitamin, we need to provide one for everyone. As soon as they wake up, they need to be able to say, what was that thing that I saw once or that someone told me? Click on something and the whole plan is there for you. No one should be worried. Everyone needs to understand cognitively what's going on.
Yeah, I love the vision of accessibility. I think it's so important, and one of the challenges of our world as it is currently and as it has been is these laws have really been kept from people or only made available to a chosen few, a selected few, rather than the mass population. So human beings have fundamentally been disconnected from who and what we are, which, I can't wait for a world where we actually start to wake up and remember.
Yes. Before, when you had asked about part of my awakening and things, it's still been, as you can imagine, a very overwhelming process. And I'm so excited after this time getting to the point where it's become really refined, and I'm basically starting my first round of funding and all of these things, which has been hard to learn because I came into the intelligence of I'm starting a new financial system or allowing people to do that. I don't want to use the financial system now. You have to come to peace with, how do I use what we have, which is the financial system, to consciously transmute that energy. So then it's been this process of now realizing, okay, I am starting a pre-seed, or I am having investors, or I am starting companies. And there's a beauty in that as well, because we have made things easy for ourselves to do things like this. And eventually all of these things we've set up to allow ourselves to evolve, we will be patting ourselves on the back and going, thank you for allowing us to quickly do things, because we can quickly make change now rather than sending a letter. But yes, energy is the fundamental of that. It's having the feeling. If you have the intelligence, it's just another book. You've got to have a heart-to-heart connection and an emotional response to that. And I think when I connected with you recently and we talked a little bit about it, I've gone through my own personal transformation and my own process that has led me to understand what evolution is about as well, because it was very drastic, and there's a lot of trauma and a lot of things that I've been through in the last 3 years that I've used this system to guide me through, and I've rebirthed myself. I really, hopefully, finally at this point, to a higher dimensional being that at some points a mystery to me even. But it was very interesting recently to hear that the reason I had asked someone, how do I know all of this? You know, I've channeled it, I understand it, it's become part of my very self, but how did I know all of this? And I find this very exciting because my guide had said, and this is just someone reading me, had said that I was one of a very woman or a leader in Atlantis, so the first civilization of the world, who had created this very matrix that I've written and downloaded. This was the template for when we came in and formed these incredible communities of both innate emotional intelligence and the technology that we had, whether that was crystals or stones. And then now we have technology that is still built from the same minerals. It's the same structure and the same law. We've just formulated it in a different way. So I think now coming back to this lifetime here and having this new mission, applying what I did in Atlantis and having, it's not just someone telling me this, I have the memories of it. I have the diagrams, I have the drawings, and I have what needs to be done. And a lot of other people have this download and this intelligence too, because they are all back to pursue this multidimensional experience. Yeah, so I think talking about where humanity comes from and our role in the universe is a big part of this, and people will have to get very comfortable on understanding who we are as humans.
Absolutely fascinating. I'm sure for some listeners, this is an awakening in and of itself to hear your story, Ella. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. How can our community support you?
Amazing. I am just launching my first stages of brand and the program at the moment. So through talking to you about it here, I would love to connect further. And obviously when that comes out and is available to use, I would love everyone to be there and be the first to come in and bring your evolution into what's happening and form this neural network of catalysm and activation around the world. But so you're already doing it. And that's the thing. We're already all doing the work. It's just I will be helping to bring that together. It's a platform that's easier to access.
And your socials for anyone that wants to follow your journey?
Perfect. They are my own name, if you wish, is Ella Golding, ella.golding. And I'm currently working under Elevation Existence and One Evolution. Yeah, we will tag them for you to follow. But also anyone who wants to get in contact with me, I'd love, because part of this is it has been a very internal journey. And I know exactly the people that, even people who've since passed away and their foundations are still running, all of these things that need to be connected. It will take someone like you or someone listening to say, oh, actually, I know someone who really needs to listen to this or might be interested in this and this is something I'm talking on a very global scale. So the brand like this needs to be contacting people into the billions of people. It needs to be applicable to 8 billion people. So if you know anyone and you want to connect on something of that level, then I'm definitely that person for you.
I'm sure there's many listeners that feel excited by that challenge and that proposition. As always, please join us on our next think tank. If you haven't joined our community yet and you want to come and hang out and actually be able to have these conversations live with people that care about the same subject matter, of course, Ella, we're going to be inviting you into one where our community get to ask you, I'm sure, a multitude of different questions from spiritual awakening all the way through to integrated systems design. We'll see you then. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, my friend. If you enjoyed the show, please let us know by leaving a review or sharing the episode with someone you love and expanding this conversation as far and wide as possible. If you're looking for a community to have conversations with about global affairs, please jump in our Telegram group or join our free think tanks. Thanks for being a part of the shift towards a love-based civilization. We'll see you in the Telegram group or in the next episode.